Let's dive in. Jake Willis, welcome to the Tiger Den.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for those who don't know either of us, we went to high school and college together.
Yeah.
East Peoria High School and Monmouth College.
I'll never forget when you had me on Books and Circle.
Oh, gosh.
I thought that was the next big thing, dude. I thought we were going to be millionaires.
I was an entrepreneur at heart, Jake. It's just, you find your ways to grow. My first experience as an entrepreneur was not a great one.
Hey.
Learning experience.
It was a great idea.
Yeah, I think it was
Awesome
It was
idea.
okay.
Yeah.
So you are a 8-year tenured police officer.
Correct. I'll have 8 years in March.
Awesome, man.
All with the city of Peoria.
I was doing some research before you came on. I'm going to read off some statistics for you. And I just kind of want you to comment on this because I thought some of this was interesting. So 118 officers died in the line of duty in 2023. 58,000 officers were assaulted in 2022. The average life expectancy of a police officer is significantly lower than in the general population. 50 to 60% of Americans express confidence in law enforcement. 25% of police officers show signs of PTSD. More than 30% suffer from depression. So suicide rates among police officers are 30% higher than the general population.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to start this on a down note.
No.
But that's got to be something that is difficult to deal with when you go home after a shift.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at 2024, data just came out to where I think it's 143 officers died in the line of duty compared to 118 the year before. Yeah. But what's still even amazing beyond that is there's typically 150 to 200 officers that take their own lives.
Wow.
I mean, that's a much more eye-opening statistic than most. And that's just because of the negative stuff that you're going to deal with and see. And a lot of guys just can't take that home with them. So it's very important that I've learned is, if you're having a hard time with a call or anything else, you got to talk to somebody. You have to get your feelings out. And luckily my wife is a nurse and she can take a lot of these stories that I bring home and, we just talk about it.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing is with having a child this past year is seeing the kid stuff. I mean, you can have a lot of negativity that's brought home when you see a child that's either been abused or anything else. It's a hard thing to swallow.
It becomes real with you when you have your own kids, yeah.
And then, like I said, having a kid has changed my whole perspective on being a cop because now there's someone else depending on me to come home every day on top of my wife and my family. And it just kind of changes your whole outlook on kind of the dangerous situations that we're put in.
Yeah. Do you feel that, Jake, when you go to work every day? Do you feel like the nature of is it like a culture of like you're doing something that's valuable to the city around you? I believe that cops are valuable, and I believe that you guys generally get into I'm assuming that a lot of people go into to the police force to make a difference.
Yeah.
But also it's kind of clouded with this hard work that you do. So do you feel that when you go to work? Like there's this, it's almost like not evil you're fighting against, but it's you deal with tough situations. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing is you don't know what day is going to be like that. I mean, we have an unknown of every day. I have no idea going into the shift how many calls I'm going to handle that day. Or it could be, a call at Central High School that I'm tied up on for 6 hours. Or it could be I'm running call to call to call for the next 2 hours. I'm doing 4 or 5 trouble calls is what we call them, where people are arguing back and forth and you're strictly playing a referee.
Yeah.
So, and that's the hardest thing is like, you're typically telling people how to live their lives that you don't even know how to do either. I don't know how many times that I tried to be, a parent to a parent and say, this is how you're supposed to do this when I wasn't even a parent. So to be expected to do so many things with so many different types of calls with so little time in a day is probably the hardest thing about being a cop.
That makes sense, man. Yeah. Let's dive into that. So not specific situations, but what's like the hardest call that when you get it, it's like, not fear comes across you, but it's just like your stomach might sink. You're like, I got to go deal with this right now.
It's typically the 911 hang up call to where someone's screaming for help or police to get there and there's no answer on callback. So that happens every day to where someone calls, they're arguing with somebody, they hang up the phone, and dispatch can't get a hold of them again. So you have no idea what you're going into. It could be a guy with a gun, it could be a girl with a knife. You just don't know. So you're constantly running those scenarios through your head before you even get there on what am I going to? And you're trying to take as much as you can from dispatch, but again, you're focusing on getting there as fast as you can. So you might not have time to sit and read every little comment that's on your screen. you're just expected to listen to what dispatch is telling you and just go off of that. So, and it's the hardest thing about any call. It's everyone asks, why are you so aggressive when you come up to someone's car or come up to somebody's house? It's because I don't know if I walk up to this car, this house, someone's going to shoot at me or come at me with a knife. It's like, and you don't want to be doomsday, but you also can't get complacent.
Sure.
So it's like, where's that fine line of how do I handle this call?
Stay vigilant.
Yeah, but you have to stay vigilant and you have to, be professional. But again, you also have to be aggressive sometimes because that's what the call is going to be. And if you don't, it's your safety that you're risking or your partner's safety or the other victim's safety that you're risking if you don't come into that situation vigilant and aggressive.
Man, I respect it, man. I respect every time. So every time I've been pulled over in the past several years, I got some traffic tickets, man. Don't look at my record. But every time a police comes up, I literally, they'll give me a ticket and I'll say, thank you for doing your job. Even when I get tickets, because I'm like, they don't know me. I don't know them. Mm-hmm. They're just doing their job and they see me as just somebody who is speeding on this highway or whatever, or I missed a stop sign or something. So I respect cops because I couldn't do the job myself. There's no way.
Well, and like I said, I've been pulled over even as a cop and you still get nervous as all can be, but as long as you stay respectful and obvious with your hands, showing where your hands are at in the car and just, like I said, the respect goes a long way in a traffic stop for any cop. I have a hard time writing a ticket to someone that's completely respectful to me the whole time. Yeah. And that's just who I am.
Yeah. Let's talk about something good. So what's something joyful or something that you feel like you've gained from a situation where something went your way? You didn't know a situation, you pulled up, something happens, and then you walk away and you say that was a really good interaction with the public.
So I think, well, first of all, just the unexpected gratitude that I get for everyday calls that I go to. Like I said, I've been on for 8 years now. So, I might have somebody that I dealt with 4 years ago who I don't recognize at all that sees me on another call and says, hey, I just want to thank you for the way you handled this or the way you did that. And it's, again, I don't know who this person is. I don't recognize them at all. But just that you have that impact on somebody so many years later that they remember you for what you did. And again, you're just doing your job. But I'd say one of those things is just solving a case from start to finish, because we're lucky enough in Peoria to have detectives that we can kind of pass the ball to if we can't, finish the case. But if you can solve a case from start to finish, that's a complex case, whether it be a shooting, a rash of burglaries that are happening in a certain area, so putting video together on your own, figuring out who the suspect is and solving that case start to finish is probably the most rewarding thing that you can run into, especially in the city of Peoria with the amount of crime that we're dealing with. I think my most recent thing was, we had the plasma center at Sheridan in Nebraska that was having vehicles broken into 3 days in a row where someone was coming up, throwing a brick through the window and going through the car. So again, all I did was review video footage, take a look at what the kid was wearing and just piece that together with different security cameras, check the schools for their cameras, see if this kid came in and ended up catching the kid. So just solving a case like that to help anyone else from getting their car burglarized at a plasma center is rewarding to me. And it's also rewarding to those people that are getting their cars broken into.
For the age of crime, for people actually committing crimes, is there a lot of kids who just don't have guidance or are just off on their own doing stuff? Is that a lot?
Oh yeah.
It's a ton.
Every day.
Yeah.
It's the most frustrating thing that we're dealing. And I think the public and, a lot of local leaders are figuring that out, that the problem is the parenting and accountability that we're not putting on the parents to make sure that they know where their kids are at all times.
So what are you guys doing to solve for that? Or is there education, or is there, I feel like it's such a tough balance you guys have to have because police officers are seen as somebody who enact the law. Mm-hmm. So giving advice to people when you wear that uniform in that way of like, there's got to be some sort of community outreach and to make you guys human as opposed to just being law enforcement. I have seen the chief go out to community events all the time and he's out there in the public trying to make himself real. And I appreciate that. It's like, he's trying to humanize the police.
And we're all trying, but again, these kids are at home most of the time. And that's where a lot of the influence to go out and do stuff comes from, is just whatever's going on at home. So we can't put that on everyone else's shoulders to make it their responsibility to keep an eye on their kids. It's just got to be done from the home. So, if you don't know where your kid's at 11 o'clock at night, we should probably call somebody or call the police and say, hey, I can't find my kid, and see what we can do about that. But we're trying to, if we see a random kid that is obviously underage out at, 2 o'clock in the morning, we're going to stop them and make sure that they're, returned home and why they're out and about at this time of night.
Are there any thoughts to penalizing parents for having their kids out? Is that a thought, or is this more so?
It's a hard thing to say. I mean, you're seeing it a lot with, like, if you look at the school shootings that have happened in the last 5 years, they're really trying to put the blame on the parents and, why they had guns in the house, that type of stuff. So I can see it, but with a lot of the petty stuff, the burglaries, the stolen cars and that type of stuff, it's hard to really charge a parent with anything for letting their kid do something like that. But because clearly they don't want them to. But again, it's how did the kid get out of the house? How are they out and about at this time of night? And I think really it's kind of like a nuisance property. If you have a kid that's getting caught this amount of times a year, okay, where's the problem really arising from? So but it's hard to say. There's no clear-cut answer on what you can do to really hold parents responsible criminally.
I get it. When you walk into restaurants or walk into public places in your uniform, what's the general feeling you get from other people? Is it more gratitude, or is it more like, okay, here's a cop here?
It depends. I mean, you're always going to get the person that says, oh, it wasn't me. And I mean, you just roll with it at this point.
Of course.
No, it's honestly, it's a lot more respectful and gratitude than you would think. Especially, I work the Civic Center off duty in uniform, and you'd be amazed at the amount of people that would come up to me and just shake my hand and thank me, and it's awesome. So it's a really good feeling. I hope people don't think that we take that for granted, because every time someone comes up and shakes my hand and says thank you for your service, it almost feels it's not like I'm in the military or anything, so I don't want to think it's that or anything, but it does feel good to know that people respect the police and want us here. And we really saw that, we had the George Floyd fallout to where the riots and stuff were happening. People saw what chaos could be like.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was very close to home. You had gas stations, convenience stores, Walmart, all that stuff was getting broken into and ransacked. And it's like, this is what chaos could be like if we didn't have police.
No kidding, man. What's some of the, you don't have to say specifics, but the conversations around your guys' police force and, like, I guess around a leadership / encouragement perspective, it's just, I could understand that when you deal with stuff every day that just wears you down, there's got to be some way to fill the cup back up. So is there any programs or any culture in the police force that's trying to pick you guys back up and build that level of culture of encouragement?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of us will do stuff like play softball or find some extracurricular activities, gym-wise, or a lot of guys do jujitsu and make that a team building type thing. But my biggest thing is just finding other stuff beyond anything that's in the area that I work or any of that, and just getting away from the job completely.
Turning your brain off.
And we have to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the most important thing. And there's a lot of times where I'll come home and just tell my wife, like, my day was great, but I really don't want to talk about it. So, and that happens a lot on our weekends. We both won't talk about work. Yeah. And you have to do that too. If you need separation, just let your spouse or whoever know, look, I've had enough. Like, I can't talk about it. It's nothing personal, but I just kind of need some downtime to just kind of reset my brain.
Depress. Yeah. My wife was a emergency room nurse for several years. She first worked in neuro ICU. So it's brain injury, hard car crashes. She dealt with probably police officers all the time.
Yeah.
Because some of them were criminal. But the amount of stories, she would come home sometimes to just take like cold baths because she was her brain would just be going for 12 hours. And she'd come home and just be like, I just need a minute. And then she would share some of these stories of seeing people's faces deformed, right? From these car crashes or from gunshot wounds or from you name it. And it's like, she was so strong. Nurses are so strong because the stuff they deal with and this life-saving medication and trying to keep somebody alive. And those things are necessary in our world, but I don't think we really think about that until we're faced with it.
No. And my wife, she did peds oncology, which is kids with cancer. And, they were going to, visitations a couple times a year. And when we found out that we were expecting, she had to get out of that for a while. So she had to move to a different department in the hospital and just take a break from it. Because, we talked about, what if you have a death right by the time that we're about to have our child? Are you going to be able to handle that? And what stress is that going to put on you and your pregnancy? So you have to really take your personal accounts into, and I told her when we first got together, if this job ever became too much for our family, like, I'll leave.
We'll figure it out.
I'll go do something else. Yep. Because a lot of people take any career home with them, and it ruins marriages. It ruins your relationship with kids and stuff like that. So you have to really prioritize what's most important. And I've always told my wife, like, this becomes too much, I'll walk away.
Yeah.
There's no questions asked.
My wife, from this experience, we have, for instance, we have a fireplace at home, and it's got a gas line going into the fireplace. And the gas line, it's got like a coil that it had a hole in it. So the fire would catch that and blow out it's almost like a flamethrower in the fireplace. It was not acting right. But I knew just from stuff that it's not going to blow up the house, right? It's like, I'm just not going to use the gas line, and I'll use fire sticks. And she thought it was going to be a gas leak. And so her mind would just immediately go to, okay, our house is just going to blow up. And we're all going to die tonight. Monica, I love you. But her mind would just go to these things. And I'm like, where does that come from?
Yeah.
And it's because she's seen so much trauma and stuff happen, accidents happen, that her brain would just be like, that could be me. And so I bet from when you live that every day, it's just you have to distance yourself a bit and say that my life is separate from this and I can live.
But it's hard not to be doomsday at the same time.
Hard not to.
And we experienced that firsthand with our child. We always thought that we still, especially now that she's getting mobile and everything, we think of the worst thing that could happen. She's going to fall and crack her head open. We're going to be going to the hospital, and she's going to put this in her mouth and swallow it, and we're going to be using a life vac to get it out of her throat. So it's one of those things that it's hard to shut off completely no matter what you do.
Right.
And I've really noticed that, if I come to Peoria with my family, it's paranoia. Mm-hmm. Anywhere we go. It doesn't matter if it's Target, and it doesn't matter if it's a restaurant. You just have that paranoia that sets in. It's like, I know there's a lot of people that know me and remember me that I'm not going to remember them. It could be somebody I arrested, and it could be, somebody that I had a negative interaction with that happened 6 years ago that I have no idea what they even look like anymore, but they sure remember me. Mm. And so that's what I always, I've always treated people with respect. And even when I'm arresting them, to making sure like, hey, this isn't personal. This is just my job. So making sure it's, because you never know when that person's going to find you off duty and you're not expecting it. So, and that's, I think any cop that goes out in public, you're just constantly having that in mind to keep track of who is coming in, who's going out. And it's so hard to shut off.
I bet.
And I've tried, and that's why we go other cities, other places on vacation, so you can at least shut it off to a point to where it's not controlling your activity and whatever you're doing.
Yes. Are you traveling most of the time with a partner in the same vehicle? Or are you by yourself? Okay.
No, you are, well, as a field training officer, I usually have a recruit is what we call it, or a training officer with me. But we are fortunate enough in the city of Peoria to have so many cops working a shift to where anything that we classify as a trouble call, we'll send 2 officers to.
Okay. So
you'll have 2 guys coming. You might not get there at the same time, but you're coming to the same call.
Is that helpful to have a partner just next to you? I'm assuming it's got to be just a moment of comfort where there's somebody else there who can see the situation, fresh eyes.
And even with training a guy that has 1 day on the job, at least he has a radio and he can run and get us some help if I'm in trouble.
Right.
So the numbers are the most important thing with anything. So like I said, if you have 2 or 3 cops there, you're going to feel a lot better than being a solo officer in the middle of the country, which a lot of deputies have to do in the county. I mean, you don't have time to wait 30 minutes to get a guy out of the car, put him in handcuffs because you came back with a warrant. So like I said, we're fortunate to have numbers in the city, but a lot of cops aren't. And I can't imagine working, like I said, in the country or somewhere that your closest backup might be 20 minutes away. So,
how are recruitment numbers doing for police officers entering the force?
Good. it's just a constant roller coaster. Our biggest thing right now is just retaining, keeping officers at our department, because so many places are going through the same type of problems that they're offering so many benefits, sign-on bonuses, lateral transfer bonuses. Just what perks can we offer people to get them to bounce from department to department? And that's the hardest thing that any department's dealing with right now, is keeping from officers from leaving that have significant time on and so much money and training put into them that, what can we do to keep these officers at this department? So, but we are financially, we're getting officers through the academy, usually anywhere from 8 to 10 officers per academy group.
Okay.
But
how frequent are those?
It's about 3 times a year, I think. So we just had a group come back. I think there's 8 of them that just hit the streets, and you're just going to average, my class had 8 of us, and there's 5 of us now, 4 of us.
Okay.
So you're just expecting that to happen through most, and it could be anyone that fails out, that just decides this isn't for them, that goes to a different department. I mean, you can't predict what numbers you're going to have when these guys come out of the academy, 6 months from now.
Right.
So just keeping that constant flow of officers going to the academy, getting them back and getting them trained as quick as we can is the biggest thing that we can do. But again, we got to make sure that we keep these officers here once they get back from the academy and don't go to a different department too.
Right. Take me back to you got your badge, you've got your gun, you've got your training is complete. It's your first day on the job as an officer. Like when you pull your first, you pull somebody over, or you're identifying a suspect or something. What's the feeling there? Your first time.
So I'll never forget my first. I mean, I went through a suicide, a person that was shot, and a heroin overdose all in the same. And I also chased around a rooster the first day on the job.
Say that again.
I was forced by my FTO to chase around a loose rooster in the middle of the south end of Peoria. So my nickname through most of the program was Rooster. I swear to God, that's a true story. And yeah, it's something you'll never forget, that first day on the job. And it's because you don't know what to expect.
Yep.
I mean, it's hard to even put in your own brain, okay, I'm the police now. Like, this is what I've trained for. Now I have to do it. And it's hard to really put that into a real feeling in the academy. And we tell all our guys that are going to the academy, like, okay, this is training, but your real day on the job starts when you get back, because that's when the real stuff happens.
Is training at a different location?
Yeah, so the academy's in Champaign.
Okay.
Typically, PTI, the Police Training Institute. And then, so you'll do, it's roughly, I think, what are we at now? 3 months maybe of academy. And then you're going to graduate and come back, and you're doing another 3 months in the field training as a field training officer, or a training officer. And then you also have in-house training back here. So we do our own building search training, our own traffic stop training. So we try to do kind of things how we do here as soon as they get back, before they even hit the street. It's called rookie school. So when they come back, they're not going to be on the street for a few weeks until they go through all that stuff that we do in-house in Peoria.
And so you go through the 3 months of training, the 3 months of rookie school, first day on the job, you're chasing roosters. And then you said a heroin overdose, a suicide, and something else to start your day.
And I'll be honest, I questioned myself that first day.
I bet, bro.
I was like, there's no way I can do this every day. And
is that a pretty intense workload, considering your 8 years? That was like a super
intense.
That
was just a bad day. And it
just happened to be your first.
And it just happened to be my first. I mean, the suicide alone was, just, I couldn't believe it's hard to, even if you've seen pictures of a suicide, to see it, it's my most dreaded call. Any death is your most dreaded call. But my first day on the job, I mean, to see that and the backstory behind it, I won't get into, but to see what suicide does to a family.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to see that firsthand. I mean, you're seeing the reaction of when the parents or whoever finds this person that just took their own life and how they're processing it. I mean, again, it's hard to put into words on what that feeling's like your first day on the job, but that's what a lot of these guys are going through at some point in their career. That's what they're going to experience.
And then you're just expected to wake up the next day, do it again.
Well, not even that. You have to go to your next call in about an hour.
Call.
So, and it's just I think that culture needs to change, especially, if you have a child death or something, like you shouldn't have to finish your shift.
Yeah.
Like you should get some time to go home and debrief and kind of process what you just experienced before you're dealing with someone else that you have to show complete professionalism to, not knowing what you just went through.
Yeah.
So we do need to make that a constant thing across the board to where we're giving our officers some time off to debrief kind of critical incidents is what they would call them.
I bet. Yeah. That sounds like that's wisdom, because it's just, there's no way the human body and the human brain can only take so much before
trauma,
something happens and you just flip a switch, and especially as a job as important as a police officer, going into every call with an amount of patience and calmness and not freaking out. We've all seen the videos of police officers in whatever city it is where something happens that goes wrong, right? We've all seen them. It's just so hard to judge that with objective eyes. You have no idea what that person just dealt with for the past 10 days, last week, whatever.
Yeah.
So I get it, man. It's just, and life can change at the blink of an eye.
Yeah. And to take that into another, aspect of how all police officers are looked at as
Villains.
One mistake.
Yeah.
Someone in New York or, across the whole United States makes a mistake or has a terrible day or, that they screwed up. We shouldn't all be responsible for that.
Exactly.
So, that doesn't happen in any other, if you have a doctor that does malpractice, not all doctors are going to do malpractice or be like that doctor.
I'd say 85% of lawyers are like that. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Maybe. No.
So, and that's the unfair part of the job is we're held accountable for all these, mistakes that are happened completely away from this city and you see it every day and it's hard because, we get the pendulum going upwards and then all of a sudden it goes right back down because somebody screwed up and didn't do their job correctly and completely were untrained and, they didn't take responsibility for something that it's not all of our faults that happened.
No. So City of Peoria, let's talk about it. Non-political. You've been here so 2016 is when you entered the force? Or 2017? 17.
Yeah, March 2017.
So coming up on 8 years full. Has the crime gotten worse or better since you've started?
It's hard to say. I'd say it's pretty steady. We hit a very busy motor vehicle theft thing with juveniles that we hope is kind of, coming down, but
stop it. Stop.
Well, Kia is finally catching on and doing updates to where their car can't just start from a USB port. So, and again, that's no secret. There's a YouTube video on it. So, but just it's been steady. It's hard to say if it's going up or down or vice versa, but it's definitely constant. In Peoria, and it's a sad thing that it is that way. But we do have a city of over 100,000 people, right. So it's bound to have some type of crime in it.
This is back in probably 2015. I go out to my car in the morning to go to work. I drove an old Ford Taurus. It was a crap. And my iPad is what I worked with every day. So I usually used to leave it in my passenger side of my vehicle. Mm-hmm. I was living over by Emos.
Okay.
Prospect and more.
Yep.
So left my car there every day, parked outside, very common for me. And where I'm from, East Peoria, we used to unlock our doors and unlock our cars. It was just common.
We didn't lock our house door growing up.
Same, bro.
At all.
At all.
Never. I don't even think we had a key to it.
No. It's just like you leave it open and it's just what it is. So I'm used to that. So I go out to my car the next morning, car door's open. I'm like, okay. All my change is gone. My iPad's gone. I had a tracker on my iPad. It was to find my iPhone. So I track it down and it's 3 streets down. So I drive over to the house and Jake, I'm like a private investigator. I'm like 4 doors down, just like, staying low in my car. I'm like, I'm going to catch this guy.
I had it solved before you even called the cops.
Dude, I'm waiting. I call the cops. I'm like, hey, my iPad is in this house. I can't see it, but it's certainly there because it's tracked right there. I know exactly what house it is in. They're like, listen, we're busy right now. Like, you're not going to get your iPad back. They're like, just consider it gone. File an insurance claim, get it back. I'm like, listen, I'm here and I'm waiting for a cop. Cop shows up, same thing. He's like, listen, man, I got a lot of calls to go to. He's like, I'm busy. He's like, but you're not going to get this back. Just think that. So We go up to the door and I start knocking on the door. No one's answering. On my phone, I can actually press to play a sound on the iPad.
Yeah.
So I press to play a sound and I hear it in the house. I'm like, do you hear that? He goes, yeah, I hear it. We keep playing a sound. All of a sudden I hear some scrambling in the house. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking like a criminal. I was like, I'm going to go around the back of the house and just wait. You stay here.
Yeah.
So I go around the back. 4 kids dart out the back. I said, hey, you're not in trouble. I don't want to get you in trouble. I just want my iPad back.
Yeah.
One kid stops from running and just says, looks at me, goes back in, gets the iPad, brings it over, gives it back. Police officer's like, I've never seen this before. It always goes missing. So yeah, it was a good interaction. The cop had a little conversation with the kid. Same thing. Parent wasn't home.
Yeah.
And they were at work and their kids were there and that was it.
So I just had that same type of scenario because if you haven't, most of the high schools around here are making the kids use pouches for their cell phones.
Okay.
And if they get caught bringing a cell phone into school, it gets taken. And then they get it back at the end of the day or whatever. So this kid goes to get his cell phone back and it turns out that they had handed it to some other kid and gave his phone away. So he goes home, talks to his mom, and they do the same thing, find my iPhone and find where the phone's hitting down to the house, showing inside the house. And the mom says, hey, I don't care if the kid's, charged with anything. I just want my kid's cell phone back. Like, because iPhones nowadays are $1,400, $1,500 a pop, even if they're older versions. Yeah. So I totally understood that. And it's all in how you approach that door. I mean, again, the mom answered the door of where the stolen phone was hidden. And I said, hey, do you have a kid that goes to Central High School? She says, yeah, I have a daughter. It's 14 or whatever. And I said, okay, here's the deal. There's a phone that's showing on Find My iPhone in this house. Okay. That doesn't just randomly happen. All right. Technologies came a long way to where that phone either was here or is here right now. And she goes, okay, well, I'll go get my daughter and bring her down. And so the daughter comes down and I said the same thing. I said, hey, you're not in trouble. Okay. But I know you have this phone. Okay. Yeah. The phone is showing in this house and it's moved in this house. So it's on. And if you have it, like, nothing is going to happen. I'm not even going to tell the school that you took this phone. Right. Okay. But you need to give it back.
Did she just take it or was it given to her?
It was given to her but she didn't do the right thing and give it back.
I see.
Which it is what it is. And I didn't sit there and lecture about it. I'm hoping the mom did. And she said that she was going to take care of it. But technology has came such a long way to where that stuff is helping us. And we preach every day on calls, like, invest in some cameras. It'll save you. It'll save us. It'll help us.
For your house or
for your house. I mean, it's huge. I mean, a Ring camera costs you $150 for the doorbell. You can get one that doesn't even have to be hooked into any type of wiring. It runs off a battery. Right. Yes. Could someone steal the battery? Sure. But again, it's better than nothing to have some type of camera at your house to help us, because if it's caught on video, it's going to give us a 90% jump on solving that case.
Makes sense. We were talking off camera about a situation you dealt with not too long ago. And this is public information, so we're not diving into anything too private. But 3.8 million views on YouTube.
Yep.
Is it the highest clip you've ever had as a police officer?
By far. So I mean, luckily, thank you. But it's been nothing close to that.
Yeah. What's the experience like seeing that through the public's eyes? Because that's got to be it's a huge story that happened. What's that like to kind of feel like, holy smokes, this blew up?
Yeah, and I mean, it'll show you, like you said, just because you see a clip, you don't understand the backstory at all. So to preference this, this was a call at Chuck E. Cheese out in Peoria and Sterling of a theft of a purse, or a wallet that was set on a game by, a middle-aged mother with her kid. And all of a sudden, a male and female, 5 minutes after the mom gets off the ride or the game, comes up and snags the wallet, runs out to the parking lot, gets in a car. And so, yeah, we did some investigation with the video and found what kind of car they left in, all that type of stuff. And as we're investigating this, we get an alert from the victim like, hey, I just got notified that my card was used at this gas station right down the street. So I was familiar with this gas station, knew it had really good cameras, and they would be helpful with us. So we immediately pack up our stuff and go down to this gas station and start looking at their cameras. We see the same male and female that stole the wallet from Chuck E. Cheese, what car they got into, what the car looked like, And so we're sitting out in the parking lot, and I was training an officer at that time and have him starting the report and doing some background check for this car, see if we can find something on it. And all of a sudden the car goes right in front of me.
Like drove from behind you?
Yeah, we're parked facing Forest Hill, right there in the gas station. And I'm just happen to be keeping an eye out, just looking around us, and I see the car just drive right past us on the street. And I said, there's the car right there. And we go out and we pull it over. They stop. So the female that actually took the wallet was in the passenger seat. And so I went up to the passenger seat, had him go up to the driver's seat.
You already know what they look like because the cameras from Chuck E. Cheese.
I knew exactly. It was 100% her.
Yep.
So again, instead of getting into an argument or anything right at the door, I want to get her out of the car.
Right.
So I just want to get her in custody, and then we'll because I already know she did the crime. I don't have to have any reason to pull her out of the car.
So what did you say when you walked up to the car?
So I just said, hey, it's Officer Willis. I'm going to need you to step out. I got to talk to you about something. And so immediately when I open the car door, she starts fighting. And we get in a big scuffle in this church parking lot.
When you say fighting, Jake, like describe that. Did she come out just like starting to punch you or tackle you?
So she tried to V-line and run from me. And so I was able to grab onto her. And again, the back of my mind, I'm like, this is a Chuck E. Cheese theft. Like, I don't want to, she probably weighed 110 pounds. Like, I don't want to do a straight arm takedown in the middle of a parking lot for, a petty theft. So that's my main mindset right off the bat. And so it was ugly, but I got her into cuffs without using any type of excessive force or, slamming her onto the ground or tasing her or anything like that. We just eventually got her into handcuffs and told her to stop fighting. But so yeah, we do all this nonsense, and we ended up finding out that she lied about her name and told us, a completely made up name that checked back to some ID in Wisconsin that had the same descriptors, but we didn't have a picture of her because she didn't have a physical ID on her. And so I had my partner searching the male that was arrested for another whole thing. And we found her ID, her real ID, in the wallet part of his wallet, and run that on our computer and find out she has a hit and run homicide warrant out of Wisconsin.
So real quick there, when somebody has a warrant in a different state, it picks that up in your local system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, we can see nationwide warrants, and we do have to verify through that state that this is a valid warrant and you guys actually want to extradite. So extradite means you're going to come pick them up and actually take them on this warrant. So
Wisconsin comes here, picks them up and brings them
back.
back.
So we'll take them to our county jail, and then somebody from Wisconsin in the next week or so will come pick them up and take them back and keep them in custody back in their jurisdiction of wherever they had the warrant out of. With Chicago, a lot of times they won't extradite even if it's from Peoria, St. Louis, or whatever. It's strictly Cook County. So
wait, say that again?
Like Chicago, they just won't extradite from any other jurisdiction.
So if you're outside of the city of Chicago, you committed a crime.
Say non-extraditable unless you're in Cook County, DuPage County, whatever county that's local.
Even if it's like a murder or something?
No, if it's like something like that. But like the petty stuff, you got your traffic warrants or your, retail theft warrants, stuff like that. They just won't worry about it unless you get pulled over in Chicago.
Is it because there's just so much crime up there? They're kind of like,
I think so.
Whatever.
I mean, I'm assuming that's what it is. But so yeah, anyways, this warrant from Wisconsin was definitely extraditable, and we got a hold of Wisconsin and sent her a picture of the female, and like, yeah, that's 100% who we're looking for. And so then I go and have my partner stop the wagon that was transporting her out to the county already, and we ended up calling her out on her fake name that she gave us, and she tried to jump out of the wagon and run away from us again. So anyways, this all was FOIA'd from somebody, which means the Freedom of Information Act, to where they can actually get the body camera, the police report, they can get the camera from the transport wagon that we had, and piece it all together and make a YouTube video. And that's typically what you see when you have all these viral videos take place, is somebody's piecing together the actual body cam, the actual car camera and that stuff, and putting it into a sequence to where it's going to get a bunch of views. And so that's what they did with this whole thing. And again, there's a lot of holes to the story, but it covers pretty much everything from start. It's like a 26-minute video, start to finish, of this whole ordeal. And yeah, I think it's just hit 3.8 million views or something in 4 months. So It's been, constantly people texting me, sending me the videos, acting like I didn't know what happened, but it's been.
You're like, I live this.
Yeah. So it's still going on. She's awaiting sentencing in Madison, Wisconsin. And so it's still an ongoing thing. I don't know if I'll be needed to go to Wisconsin at all. I'm guessing she'll try to take a plea deal, but yeah, who knows how that's going to turn out.
Yeah. We were talking about this. We touched on this, talking off camera, that wearing body cams it's a good thing because it protects you from people saying that you did something you did not, or vice versa. And so, but it's also something where you know you're being filmed all the time. So there's this extra level of like, it's like there's people watching you all the time, and that information can be foiled at any time. Yeah. So no matter what, you've got to be careful as to. It's almost like that somebody's watching you all the time. All the time. That's a very unique experience in human life because not everybody has cameras on them constantly.
No, and it took a while to get used to. Like I was telling you, I did 2 years without body cameras when I first got hired because the department didn't have them. No one around us had them. It was just kind of a thing that was just coming on to law enforcement. And then most of my career has been on body cam. I will tell you hands down, I've liked it much better with body cams because, again, it tells the truth. You know, the eye in the sky don't lie. That's where that whole thing. So my camera does not lie. Even if you piece together your own, cell phone camera, it doesn't matter. And we don't get that near as much anymore. People shoving cell phones in our face or anything like that because we're wearing a probably better camera than you even have in your hand. So having that protection is great. But like I was telling you, in the same sense, any technology can malfunction. You could have it fail to turn on, or I've had it to where, it's a button that activates it. And if I push the button twice, it turns it on. If I hold the button for, I think 3 seconds, that's what shuts it off.
I see.
So if I have say I'm holding a shield or I'm leaning up against something and I'm pushing that button, it might turn off and I might not even notice that my camera went off. Again, it has a vibration to it, but again, in the moment, you might not feel that. Or it also has a vibration just to tell you like, hey, I'm still recording, to kind of give you an indicator that it's recording. It'll beep too with it. But like I was saying, if you find out that, something happened to where it wasn't on camera, now you're worried, well, are the courts going to believe my police report?
Yeah.
Because my camera wasn't recording.
Do you go to court pretty often for disputes? No. Okay.
Because of the cameras.
I see.
So, and I think a lot of attorneys now just watch the body cam video. Yeah. They'll read your report and it still has some weight to it. But again, everything is on camera now to where we're so far now with technology to where the actual program that we use with Axon, it'll actually use transcripting to tell you what people are saying in the body camera.
I see.
So if you need help writing your report, you can go back and watch this body cam and it's going to tell you on the right side exactly what was said and show you kind of,
conversation,
the whole conversation.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how far technology is. And
so
now
you just print that out and say, here you go.
Yeah. I mean, you could with AI, they're even starting now to use a program. It's called Draft One. And when you record your body cam, so say it's a 8-minute video on a retail theft that happened at Walmart. So as long as you make very clear pronunciation of the names, the dates of birth, that type of stuff, it'll write your police report for you.
That's tremendous.
It'll write your narrative.
Saves you guys a bunch of time.
Yeah. And like I said, with AI, I mean, it's going to be a crazy thing in the future. Yeah. But I could see manual police reports going away. It's just going to be all done off the body camera, which is a good thing. But you're going to constantly have to go back and check that it's getting the right names, getting the right dates, all that type of stuff. But it's all on how you kind of say it on your body cam.
I was having a conversation with a friend who's really into AI. He's been on kind of the cutting edge, been at it for a couple of years now. And at his job, he was using AI to essentially, he was tasked to figure out certain problems with dealers across the country. Mm-hmm. So what he would do is have conversations with the dealers across all these different states, record the conversations with AI, upload it into ChatGPT, and say, take all of this data, cut me a conclusion of what people are saying, and then suggest to me the top 5 things you do to solve the problems. So he would do this over and over, and he would be doing months worth of work in 2 days. Yeah. So he would be outperforming everybody because he would use these tools to essentially help him.
Yeah.
And he said the amount of work that I would do and the amount of stuff I could get to really quickly was tremendous. And so we're headed there. Even for like using lawyers, how much does it cost to contact a lawyer to have them write you a very simple note?
Yeah.
I deal with that in business sometimes for like, for people, when people don't pay their bill. Oftentimes you have to go to all these different steps to confirm these things happened. You don't really have to do that anymore because ChatGPT can essentially know the laws and then print out the reports of, it's going to be a weird world.
But I will tell you, it does have some negative aspects to it.
Sure.
Because now we're getting, the Gen Zers that are coming out of the academy that cannot do a basic narrative with not having 100 grammatical errors because they don't know how to write an essay anymore. Because it's all done through ChatGPT, and technology has changed the basic functioning of just being able to write a paper.
Sure. Nothing can replace the basic human experience.
And technology, I mean, you've seen it. Take geography, for example. We grew up with MapQuest just kind of on the brink of success. And now it's like, with Siri and everything else, you don't have to know how to navigate your cardinal directions or anything.
Good point.
So we train officers when they first get on, like, you have to use this physical map. Like, we don't have any type of program that you're going to type in. It's going to show you exactly turn to turn how to get somewhere. We call them 100 block dividers. So, I'll say, take me to the, 1500 block of North Sheridan. And they have to find that on the map and navigate there by using a map. And you would be amazed of how much these kids struggle.
I would struggle
with using a basic map. And the reason we do this is not to punish them.
Sure.
Or show, well, this is how we used to do it. We don't do that.
Sure.
We show them because if you get a hot call, you get an officer that's involved in a physical fight with somebody, they're requesting backup right now. We don't have time for you to sit and look at your phone to get going in the basic direction that you need to go.
Yeah.
So once you know that 100 block divider, because there's only one 1500 North Sheridan in the whole city, like, you have to get there. So you have to get there now. And that's why we teach that, is getting you to go in the right and not depending on technology to take time to put that in. Like, just use your training and get there as quick as you can. So,
and when you're calling back to dispatch, I'm sure it's like, I'm heading north on Knoxville to get to this location, right? Yeah.
Yep. And like I said, it's just one of those things that you don't think about how quickly technology changed the game with just our mental functioning. I just read this book. It's called The Anxious Generation.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It just came out last year. I've never been so mind blown by a book because, again, like I said, we're millennials.
Yep.
The Gen Zers are the ones that literally kind of came on the brink of technology with smartphones.
Yep.
And smartphones have just changed everything.
Yep.
I mean, how quickly we get information and media on the palm of our hands it's like I said, I think it has a dangerous aspect to it for sure, with how young we're putting smartphones in these kids' hands. So my rule is going to be my daughter won't be getting a smartphone until she's probably 16.
That book was written by, and I watched a lot of podcasts with the author of that book, and he talks a lot about, I think it's wait till 15 is the saying, or wait till 16.
Yeah, he's got because I mean, technology, you can get phones that just call certain numbers.
Right.
Or a flip phone that doesn't have internet access. Again, your kid's going to hate you, but it's going to keep them safe. And I think the most dangerous thing is they're so caught up in the social media aspect of things to see what their public image is.
Yes.
Seeing, people talk about them. That was never a thing. We had some bullying going on at school, but you weren't getting bullied at home on your phone.
Yeah.
So I think that has changed everything.
Yeah. Agreed.
And, the question's going to be, when are we going to come out with some hard rules to where websites disable, unless you have an ID that you can type in or whatever to verify your age? That's going to be the next thing that's going to come. I guarantee you.
I have a 9 and 8-year-old, and thankfully we've kept them off technology, no tablets, and we watch TV together. Yeah. But when they're bored, they'll say, "Dad, I'm bored." And I'll be like, "Go figure it out. Go play with your sister. How about this? Just be bored."
Yeah.
That's okay too. Growing up, I'm sure you can relate to this. I don't think I got the internet till I was 10. And so I lived the first 10 years of my life, formative years, without internet, got internet, but it still was not to the point. It was dial up. So everybody had to be off the phones to
and
use
you
it.
had to tie up the phone line. However long your parents would let you.
And social media was not around until I was like in high school. So that was never a thing. But the idea of leaving problems at school versus taking the problems from school onto your phone to home, and you can sit there and just be reminded of them. It's very dangerous, especially for young girls.
Yeah,
which you have a girl as well. It's something I'm very protective of because I want them to stay pure as long as I can keep them. You know, the world and all the bad stuff on the internet, I want to shield them from that crap.
Yeah,
because nothing good can come from it.
Well, in that book, the main thing it hits on is we have to get back to the playful generation.
Yeah,
to where. Yes, we cannot control everywhere that our kid goes, and we have to trust that if they want to go to a friend's house across the neighborhood, that they're going to make it back in a few hours.
Yes.
And I don't have to drive them there, pick them up, drive them home. So it's one of those things like, and again, we cannot control every aspect of our kids' lives and protect them from everything.
Exactly.
Example, last night my daughter was playing in the kitchen. She's just now crawling around, and she climbs up on the holder for our dog bowls. We started taking the dog bowls out, but she still climbs up on them, and it flipped over and it hit her in the face. And immediately, tears run down. But, my wife's freaking out, but it's like, this is a learning thing for her. Now she knows the dangers of crawling on everything. She could get hurt. So if we don't control that, you're just going to have a reckless kid.
It's true. Jonathan Haidt is the author to that book, and he does a lot of podcasting. And one of his things that's kind of, pull up a picture of him. Yeah, this is the same guy. Yeah, that's what he looks like for the camera. I believe he lives in New York City.
Yeah,
and I don't know if he writes about this in the book, but he talks about it a lot. That he lets his kid, I think the daughter is 9 years old, walk to the corner store by herself because he's like, the perception is that kids get taken all the time and they get hurt all the time, but he allows them to have this relationship of individuality and freedom that seems dangerous, but actually we used to do this all the time several decades ago. But then there was this push towards your kids going to get abducted if they're by themselves. That's just the fear. So we're essentially teaching our kids to fear everything from very young ages. And what that does to your brain is it rewires it to say nothing's safe. And with the advent of the internet, it only gets worse because back to this where I was talking with my wife, it just everything becomes this. What's going to happen?
Doomsday.
It's not a way to live your life.
Well, one of the big things I pulled, like if you look at playgrounds, you can't find a merry-go-round probably in this entire state that's functional on a actual playground of a school because of liability. You're going
to get sued by a lawyer. Thanks, lawyers. No.
So just seeing that, kids rarely get hurt on playgrounds anymore because they're so safe.
It's true.
Or, kids that play things in gym class. I think dodgeball's banned from middle-aged gym classes because kids get hit in the face and they get a bloody nose and they go home and
listen. I go to altitude with my kids, and dude, I was there this last weekend, and dude, I go on the court. I'm the oldest by 25 years, and the kids are out there. I'm going hard, Jake.
Yeah,
I got to teach these kids a lesson,
and
they're coming after me too. And by the way, like boys just eat that stuff up.
Yeah.
They're like, well, they welcome it, they love it. So. But it's fun, man. It's like, this is life. And by the way, when you start playing with kids, there's just a certain spark that they see you're a child too at heart. And it's like an immediate connection where it's like you're on a team together, you're playing against somebody. It's fun. And we can't erase that from our culture and just be scared of everything for being fear's sake. It's no fun. Yeah.
Scary time.
It is. It's an interesting time we're living in, man. 2025, I think that the AI will only continue to progress and evolve. And we have to really, Elon Musk has talked about this a lot. There's got to be some protections around AI because it can take over.
Yeah.
Have you seen these videos of the two AI computers talking to each other? They create languages and they start thinking they're going to turn us off. And then it's like the movie with Will Smith, I, Robot.
Yeah.
It's what it is. And it's like,
terrifying.
There's got to be something we can do to change this. I know Tucker Carlson's very big on this. He's like, if these things are going to take all of our jobs and leave us to do nothing and we're just going to be free to do whatever, that's not a good society.
No.
If you study societies, men that don't have jobs to do and purpose, they turn to alcohol, drugs, and crime. It's what happens. We can't allow that to happen. Providing for your family and having a job that you feel purposeful in is extremely important to the fabric of society.
Yeah.
And the minute we just say, hey, The cars are going to drive themselves. Truck drivers will be eliminated. Truck driving, I don't know if you know this, but it's the number one job for kids who never, high school educated males. Truck driving is.
Really? Didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's the number one job by volume. And so if you take away truck driving for people who don't have college degrees or don't have anything else to do, what do you expect them to do? Just have nothing to go to? It's like, this is not a good thing in a lot of ways. So we have to be very careful about these next 5 years, because it could reshape society as we know it to, in my opinion, not a good level.
No.
Yeah.
And just when you see like the professional athletes that are getting AI'd on different situations, or cheating on their spouses or anything, like the fact that you can do that, or you can call somebody and make it look like you're FaceTiming them just by using the person's face. And it's not, and that's how we get a lot of these scams, is people FaceTiming that, you know, it's an AI generated image of somebody that's actually somebody they know asking for money.
I see.
Or whatever. You know, you have a grandson or somebody that's asking for money from a grandma on a FaceTime AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course they're going to give them the money, because they have no idea it's fake.
Especially older folks. My mom got scammed several years ago from somebody who it was a security thing on her computer that popped up. She tapped on it, was talking to somebody from Microsoft, and they said, "Hey, pay us $2,500 or else your computer's going to shut off. It's never going to work again." She's learned to contact me before these things, but she lost the money. Thankfully, the bank insured it and reversed the transaction in time, but she learned a valuable lesson. It's like, it looks really real.
Yeah.
So
if anyone tells you to go buy a gift card,
stop.
Just stop.
Don't do it.
Just hang up the phone. I promise you'll be okay.
The banks are getting better at that, though.
Yeah.
Or even the stores. They'll be like, who is this money going toward? And they'll kind of protect the customer, which is good.
Yeah, they're doing, and CEFQ and PNC, I think, are probably the top ones that I've dealt with that actually catch these before it actually happens. Or if it has happened, they'll get their victim refunded right away.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the scams with AI, that's a whole nother thing that you can talk about.
Is that something a topic of conversation at the force?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, AI is terrifying. Like I said, it can help us a lot.
Yeah.
It can help every job. But like you said, how far do you take it?
Got to be limits.
To where it could turn dangerous in a hurry, because we haven't had any restrictions on it for, this amount of time, to where how are you going to so quickly put restrictions on something that could be detrimental crime-wise?
And we have to understand that if taken to the extreme, there's no limits as to what's real and what's not real. So let's take Google reviews. So it's something we take really seriously in business, where we have 346 or 347 Google reviews. A business could eventually start and have an AI chatbot leave reviews, create Google accounts, and leave reviews for your business, which then props up your company to make it look like it's something that it's not. And so in the world of business, let's say you think this company is something, but it's not. That's dangerous.
Yep.
It creates a false sense of security for the consumer. So where do these protections start and stop for people?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, I don't know the answer to the whole AI thing.
Yeah.
Because
two bros in a podcast.
I think we'd be very wealthy if we did. But like I said, right now I'm optimistic, but the main thing I think we need to look for and protecting is the kids. Because that's, I think, the biggest thing that we're not thinking of is how much is this AI stuff affecting the classroom and affecting the kids. I know you want to try to take cell phones out of their hands, but you don't think when they go home they can finish a whole entire homework assignment in 5 minutes because of AI?
Good point.
So, and that's happening in colleges too.
Sure.
So we're having all these people look like they're qualified for these jobs with degrees and everything else that cheated their entire way through college.
What if that's a doctor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can happen. Like I said, anything that requires a report or a paper can be written by AI.
Let's take it to the other side though, right? If ChatGPT has all the data of medical disease and solutions to disease on that thing. So if a doctor is using AI to help their patients see what's wrong with a person, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Yeah. However, you still want to have that natural ability to diagnose patients as a doctor, right? Going back to your point about reading directions versus the GPS, you have to have the basics and fundamentals down.
Yeah. And that's why when we look at WebMD or whatever from Google ourselves, we don't diagnose ourselves with certain things because it's going to show you 20 things that are terrible.
It's like, you got cancer. It's like, no, actually, I think I got the flu.
No, you should still go in and get looked at and get checked out. But like we said, I mean, it's changing everyone's profession because you're having a lot of people that are not as qualified as they used to be because of the ease that they got through whatever they had to get through, academy, college, some type of program for the job. It's gotten a lot easier.
And it happened in a blink of an eye. AI came out like a couple of years ago. When it did, I was like, sure, AI, whatever. And then they showed ChatGPT and all the systems infrastructure. I was like, holy smokes.
Well, think of the nightmare from a teacher's standpoint.
Sure.
I mean, how do you catch these kids plagiarizing anymore when it's made up specifically for them through AI to where there's no catch? I mean, you might say, well, there's no way this person could write this report or write this paper. But again, how do you prove it?
Especially in a college classroom of 50
yeah,
students.
You used to be able to prove it. It's like, okay, we figured out you got most of your information from this source and you didn't cite it anywhere.
Right.
Well, that's not a thing anymore.
It's like AI versus AI. There's AI to write the papers, and then teachers have AI software to know what it's catch. So it's like this computer versus computer. It's bizarre.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. Where are we going to be in 5 years, man? Where are we going to be? Like 5 years is a long time in AI because what we've seen over the last, I mean, you got to think, Jake, like technology kind of progressed, like somewhat slowly from like 1950 onward. Internet came out, everything changes. We buy on Amazon now for a lot of stuff, right? It's like commerce and how we purchase things and how we communicate's changed. Then AI came on, even a sharper hockey stick of technological advancement. So in the next 5 years, I know they're talking about AGI, which is essentially computers thinking like humans. So like with reason. And so that's the next step of AI where, again, computers will be far more complex and can consume information at a very different level than human beings. So they will be essentially, they probably already are smarter than us, but at the nth degree, it's like that gets really scary really quick.
Yeah. And we're advancing in the police department as well. We have a new program that we're going to be launching here soon completely, but it's used to get all these cameras in the city. So you have your cameras that are on, different intersections and the stoplights and stuff like that. So say we're getting sent to an accident at Prospect and War Memorial. So when I get dispatched, it's going to immediately pull up all those cameras at that intersection to show me what's going on.
I see.
So if I need, northbound Prospect shut down or, some part of War Memorial, I can already request more cars to help me do that.
Sure.
So that can happen from anything from, if you have a shooting where a car takes off, maybe this camera that automatically pops up catches a vehicle leaving the scene at a high rate of speed. Well, now it can activate every camera in the city to look out for this car and follow it, essentially.
I see.
So like I said, the possibilities are endless when it comes to that aspect of AI. And I could see it really helping us in crime down the road. We already have the flock cameras, which a lot of people don't understand what those are. They're only used for law enforcement specific purposes. So just like if you go through a tollway, every tollway you go through is running your plate and taking a picture of your plate if you don't have the iPass.
Yes.
So in a sense, we can't just search randomly, for any plate. We have to have a specific purpose in terms of an investigation or a police report. So a lot of it is with like stolen cars. So if I have a stolen car that was stolen last night between 11 o'clock and 9 o'clock this morning, well, I'm going to look back at Flock, type that plate in, and it's going to pull me every hit that car set off throughout the city and show me exactly where it hit. So that hit could even show, depending on which way they're coming, it could show the windshield and see who's actually driving the car. Wow. So that's a huge thing that, like I said, people are so, against us having all this information, but we're not using it like that. We're using it we have to use it per our policy for specific law enforcement reasons.
So the flock cameras are already engaged in the public. So it's certain intersections or across the city? It's
across the entire city. I forget exactly how many cameras we have now. I think we have close to a couple hundred, but it's like I said, it's been a learning curve for everybody to be able to use it in terms of speed. Like I said, if I have something that happens right now, you can type it in, but some officers don't know how to do what other officers know how to do. So it's just catching everyone up to be on the same page.
I see.
And that's going to constantly be happening with technology. You have some of these old school officers that have no idea how to work the laptop anymore, but it's just getting everyone on the same page with technology can really make our job a lot easier. and a lot more easy to solve crime.
I could see how the challenger of that would say, I'm being watched. I thought this was America, right? And it's like China has this social credit system. Have you heard about this?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so China has a social credit system. So they have cameras all across the country, especially in like Beijing and some bigger cities. If you jaywalk and a cop doesn't see it, the camera will pick it up and they deduct points from your social credit score.
Really?
Yes. So
Wow.
when you apply for credit for something, if you've done crime that the cameras pick up on, it'll actually deduct your score. That feels a bit too much for America. I don't want us turning into that. Now China has a very low crime rate versus America.
Sure.
But the idea that you're being watched constantly, and then they can pick up your face and they know exactly where you are at all times, that idea to Americans, I think, is just not going to fly.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, what you're describing is attractive because it's like people can be caught doing stupid stuff. So it might deter those criminals from doing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's also going to advance to where, say you have a car dealership, which these have been victims of a lot of vehicle thefts, to where people are breaking into the car dealership in the middle of the night, getting a bunch of keys and going out and taking all these brand new cars.
Jeez.
Well, you could set a perimeter on the whole entire, whatever the business is on at this time to this time. And just like any alarm system, if somebody walks into that perimeter of cameras, just like Ring cameras, they set off that motion, it's going to immediately alert the police department and show us a video of that business and what's going on.
I see.
So, and that'll be up to the company. It's not going to be like, well, we're going to do this. No, it's up to you.
I would assume a lot of car dealers would do that.
Yeah. I mean, all you have to do is give access to your cameras to the police department for a law enforcement specific purpose, like an alert or anything else. And it's the same as, if you have a security system on this building, as soon as the motion's done, it's going to alert dispatch. And we're not going to call you and say, hey, is everything okay? Because somebody might be holding you at gunpoint and say, hey, everything's okay. Right. So again, there's so many aspects to it but it's all up to the business. It's and the individual that wants us to do that with their cameras.
Sure.
So that's down the road a little bit, but it is in motion to be launched out here in the next couple of years.
How, switching subjects here, how I see these videos sometimes of people who go to like police stations or go near cops and will just be obnoxious. They'll like film and they're almost like trying to get arrested. Have you seen this before? They try to get arrested so that they can sue the police officer and win a bunch of money in court. Like, number one, have you ever had that happen where you can just tell somebody's being agitated? But I'm sure with cell phones, people are just like, right when you pull them over, they're like filming you.
Yeah.
How annoying is that?
So you usually have two types of those people. One's going to be people that think they're sovereign citizens and aren't subject to any of our traffic laws or any laws. And the next one's going to be the auditors. So the Second Amendment auditors is what they call them. And so where they listen to the scanner for anything that's happening in the city, and they'll just show up on a crime scene.
Does that happen pretty often?
It's cut down a little bit because, I mean, all we have to do is set up crime scene tape, and you can't cross that tape. That's now our scene, and you cannot come into our scene, or otherwise you're obstructing.
But if you just pull someone over, they can come up right near the scene and just start filming. Within
reason, they cannot interfere with your investigation at all. So if I'm in fear, you're coming up to me on the car, and I have to constantly watch you then I can articulate that he was interfering with my investigation.
Makes sense.
But no, if I'm in public, anyone can be videotaped in public. So that's you have no expectation of privacy in public. But again, some of these scenes, when you can hear the scanner, and that's a whole nother thing that we'll have to get into is, you're no longer going to be able to hear our scanners over your cell phone anymore. So before it was like a 30-second delay from what it actually was.
I see.
But 30 seconds is nothing.
Right.
I mean, we have people showing up on homicides, people getting hit by cars, all that type of stuff within minutes. And they're immediately recording before we can even get tape up. So imagine a fatal accident to where you have somebody Facebook Living a fatal accident of a loved one, and you get on Facebook and you see this thing going viral, and here's your loved one that's deceased in the vehicle.
That's brutal.
Because we didn't have time to go set up crime scene tape and get this person out of the scene.
Even if you did, they can do it from a distance.
Yeah,
it's really intrusive.
The zoom and everything on this is, now you have, especially if you're in like an apartment complex where you have people in elevated positions.
Right.
How do you control that? So it's, like I said, it's one of those things like you just have to, know what you're doing. So if somebody's recording and they can legally record, you can't take their phone, you can't damage their phone, which you'll see that some cops just lose their cool.
Yeah.
And it's really not, because again, you're recording too. So it's really not, but when, like I said, I had a child get hit crossing the street by a vehicle, and one of these Second Amendment auditors showed up and started filming where the kid was. And I lost my cool, like immediately, like, you have no respect. How are you going to film this kid who's injured like this? What if his parents see it? All that, and it's an out of body experience when you see red like that. And but again, as long as you know what you're doing to make sure you're not violating any of his rights, but within reason, getting him to move back. And if he doesn't move back, or he doesn't, follow your commands of this, then yeah, he can be arrested. But again, you have to know the law and what they're doing wrong because that's what they want. Like you said, they're baiting you to violate their rights. So it's going away more that we have body cams ourselves.
You said that the law is changing. That is a delay longer, or is it just not going to come on the scanners anymore?
So yeah, we've moved to a completely different radio, which will now be an encrypted channel, which means it can't just be accessed by cell phones.
Can it be FOIA'd?
Yes.
I see.
Yeah. So all of it's recorded and everything. Nothing's changed, but it had to happen. I mean, we were using radios that were 20 plus years old. I think. It was time to go. But yeah, I mean, this will give us a lot more access to where, like, say we have a chase that leads out of the city. Now there's certain channels we can go to and communicate with law enforcement all over the state on one channel. So
Smart.
It's just technology is advancing. And again, it's an officer safety thing that people think, we're being secretive now and we're hiding stuff. Well, no, it's an officer safety thing for the stuff I was talking about.
Makes sense.
And if somebody wants to come ambush me, and they can hear within 30 seconds of exactly where I'm going to be at in the city, and you can have 30 cops in one spot. That's
if it's FOIA'd afterward, you can just find out afterward. But I think that's
right.
That's right.
And you have a lot of people that do it. You'd be amazed at how many houses we go into, and someone's just got the scanner app on their phone, and I'm hearing what I'm hearing on the radio just 30 seconds later, and I'm like, well, and they just have it on for fun. People just, and I get it. My grandma, for example, she has listened to the radio like every shift that I work as like background noise. And so she'll text me, she's like, hey, what happened on that call? And it's like, why are you listening? Like, you're in Texas right now. So they go to Texas.
She loves you, Jake.
And it's a good and a bad thing. But it's going to, they said, it's going to make a lot of people think we're being secretive, but it's nothing to do with that type of stuff.
Well, your grandma's going to watch this video.
Oh,
so shout out to grandma.
Shout out to grandma. So yeah, they're snowbirds. So they go to Texas for half the year, and they're missing all this cold weather right now, but they'll be back in April. So
yeah, so was it a law that changed, or is it just the outdated radios you guys were using that could be accessed?
And I don't know 100% of what it honestly allowed. This, I think now is just the technology has changed to where it's not as accessible to the cell phones and stuff. I think you could still get a scanner that's, got access to the certain channels that we're going to be using, but it's just going to be one of those things that it's definitely not going to be a 30-second delay to where you can hear on anyone's cell phone or anyone that has Wi-Fi to hear what's going on across the city. Wow, dude.
Yeah, this blows my mind, man. It's funny how life works, Jake, where I've talked about this a lot, where I get into stuff. I live in rabbit holes. I got into roofing 5 years ago, and I just dove down and I just learned everyththing about it. Yeah. And that's my thing. I also got into pickleball. I love pickleball. It's my favorite sport. I love to play it. I know a lot about it. And
does your wife play it too?
She does not. She wants to start learning. But
my wife wants to get into it, so we haven't played it yet.
It's great, man. It's a great sport. Easy to pick up. I played tennis for 10 years. It's very similar to tennis in a lot of ways.
It's like a mix between tennis and ping pong, right?
Yes. I'd say it's like playing ping pong while standing up. Yeah. Gotcha. Smaller paddles.
Sounds awesome.
It's so much fun. But to a person who's never swung a racket or a paddle before, it's very intuitive. It's like you can learn how to hit it within minutes. Mm-hmm. Tennis is not that way. You have to take lessons. You've got to really play for months and months and months before you can hit a top spin forehand.
Sure, yeah.
Pickleball is very different than that. So it's very easy to pick up. You can play with people from all different ages. But my point is that I get into stuff and I know a lot about these specific subjects that I get into. You're in the police force, and so this is your world you live in, and I know nothing about it. So it's enlightening because you live in a different world than I do. And you can find that for anything. You know, there's people out there that work in picture frames and they know everything about these picture frames, but I have no, you know, so like there's unlimited information and we can get in all this stuff where you can just get down rabbit holes of knowing everything about specific sects of these cultural things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, like I said, I would have never have seen you in this position going back to college, but especially, you know, I knew you'd be good at something.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what it would be. But like I said, I'll never forget the books and circle thing. I mean, I thought we were on to the next big thing. I was like, all right, I'm a millionaire now. This guy, he's got it figured out. Yeah. We're the next Facebook, you know, of books.
Yeah, that's right. For people who don't know what Books and Circle is, it was a company that we started that, you know how you buy a book at the bookstore, you sell it back at the end of the semester for a fraction of the price you paid for it. Yep. This would allow you to essentially sell the book to another student for more money, and they could buy it for less money than the bookstore.
It was in the same Facebook group as you were, you know, group of your college, which made complete sense. Yeah. I mean, it was a gold mine.
The idea worked. You know, what's funny about business, Jake, is like you might have a fantastic idea, but the execution of that idea is far more complicated and difficult. The back end finance of it, how to get something off the ground. I've learned a lot about business in the past 5 years, but the marketing of an idea is so important to the execution. And so what I've learned is that the more that I push my face and my business out there, the more people will be aware, generally aware. So even if they don't even know what roof tiger is, they might have seen this tiger face somewhere. Yeah. So it makes them relatively familiar with it, and therefore they trust it more. So it's the same with cops in a way. The more you're out there in the public and the more you can be human, they're like, okay, this person's not some turkey out there doing crime. It's like, you know, it's like he's a good cop that cares about the community.
Yeah. And that's why so I've been in the same district for 7 of the 8 years of my career.
What district is that?
It's 11 district. So it's the East Bluff.
East Bluff.
So basically if you take the downtown area where the hospitals are, all the way up to Forest Hill from Knoxville, and then you go over towards like University, Gale area. Okay. So that whole square is 11 district.
So you know everybody there?
Wouldn't say everybody, but you definitely know the frequent flyers and the common issues that you're going to have on a weekly basis. So like I said, Central High School's in my district. So I deal with a lot of stuff from Central and know a lot of the juvenile laws and stuff with that when it comes to juveniles fighting, or, you know, mob action, that type of stuff. But yeah, just knowing the people in your district that are going to help you with an investigation or looking at their security cameras or that type of stuff. You know, like with that gas station I was talking about, like I knew they had good cameras. I knew the owner. I knew he'd be very helpful with us to let us access those cameras because not every business has to give us the ability to look at their cameras. Makes sense. If you got something you want to hide,
it's private.
We're going to have to get a search warrant to look at your cameras.
Which takes time and slows down the investigation.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's impossible, and we'll probably do it anyways, but yeah, you do have that right to not help us right off the bat, which timing is everything in a lot of crimes. So just knowing those type of businesses that are going to help us with camera footage and everything else is huge with any type of investigation you do. And then the geography. So knowing, you know, exactly what 100 blocks are where and getting there in a hurry without ever having to look at a map or anything.
So when a call goes out, Jake, to something outside of District 11, are you going to that call as well?
So I'll typically be the backup officer for all the surrounding districts. So like I said, when you have a trouble call, so like 10 district is right across Knoxville from me. So if 10's getting sent to a trouble call, I'll probably be the first one dispatched with them to go to that trouble call too. So like I said, we don't ride in doubles, but typically we respond to calls in doubles. Work together. So that's kind of where you're going to be at, is the surrounding districts around you. And
by the way, there's nothing more intimidating than when you get pulled over in a traffic stop. Cop pulls you over. Second cop comes up. You're like, oh, here we go, man. Did I not pay my taxes on time? Yeah. What's going on?
And with training somebody like we have so many cops in the program now that are on day shift because a lot of our field training officers are on day shift to where we're showing up to these nonsense calls with 6 cops because all of us have a training recruit. And this guy's like, why do we need this many cops here? And it's like, I promise you, sir, it's not you.
We're just slow.
So yeah, you'd be surprised of how much numbers, like we were talking about, change things. And, you know, you don't want to show force if you don't have to. Yeah. So if I'm comfortable on a call as soon as I get there and say it's somebody that I deal with all the time, and, husband and wife are just arguing and I know nothing's physical or anything, I'll just defer the other car. Say, hey, I'm 10-4, go ahead and defer. So you get that ability too. So if I show up and I don't need another car, then I'll just defer them.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Makes sense, man. I had another question about what's it like, Jake, to put on the lights and you're going through town. Is that a feeling where you're like, okay, everybody's watching me, or like you're.
So it was really cool at first, but now, especially in the daytime, it almost makes it more dangerous, to be honest.
Why is that?
Because people don't know what to do. You have somebody that's in the turn lane that you're trying to get around or whatever. They might just veer off and hit you because you got lights and sirens on and you're trying to go around them. So it almost just makes people freak out. And then there's so many distractions within the car that, if someone comes up with you lights and sirens and you're on your phone, it's like, oh shit, they're coming after me.
Yeah.
It's like, no, just get out of the way. So, and like I said, so usually if I don't have to, I'll go quick with a purpose without lights and sirens as much as I can.
I see.
But again, that's a liability thing for us too, because general order says, I can't violate any traffic law without lights and sirens on.
I see.
So if I go through an intersection without, say I have lights on and no siren and someone smokes me, well, now they're going to hold me liable in some aspect of why don't you have your lights and siren on? So it's a weighing game with, when do you not use lights? When do you use lights? So I'll typically try to follow the traffic laws and go quick with a purpose without lights and sirens as much as I can.
Makes sense.
But yeah, when you can drive lights and sirens and code, I message everyone, just get over to your right. Like, don't pull to your left in the center turn lane, just get over. And a lot of kids aren't taught that in driver's ed for some reason, I don't think. I'll never forget when I was in the program, we had a kid that just turned 16 and had never been pulled over before. And he was down on Adams in the south end. And so I light him up and he just doesn't stop. Like, he's not taking off. He's not violating traffic laws. He's just not stopping.
On the same speed.
Yeah. And he gets home and pulls to the side of the road, right in front of his house and just starts walking inside. And we're like, what? So my training officer got out and actually, put him in handcuffs. And he's like, I was just trying to get home and tell my mom I was getting pulled over.
Oh, no.
And again, the kid did not have a record, was not a troubled kid at all. He just didn't know what to do. He was scared.
Now he knows.
So, yeah, and that's the same thing when people are driving, when you have lights and sirens behind you. It's like they don't know that, hey, you're supposed to get over the shoulder, get over to the right. Like, no matter where you're at. Like, I don't care if you're in the turn lane. Don't just stop. Like, get over.
Yeah.
So... And that's, like I said, it can be more dangerous driving with lights. At night is a different ballgame.
Sure.
Because you're very obvious when you stand out. But during the daytime, rush hour, there's so many distractions. People that have music loud in their car or on their phones or whatever. They just don't hear you.
Yeah.
And they definitely don't see you because not everyone's checking their, rearview mirror every second.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, it's a weighing game. But it's fun. But it's losing its fun when it comes to daytime.
Help settle the debate for me. I already know the answer, but I'm gonna put this on camera, okay? Single lane, it's going from 2-lane traffic, Jake, down to single lane in the future. Let's say there's a traffic sign that says, 1 mile ahead there is a 2-lane that goes to 1 because there's construction. I see this so often where people will start going to the lane that's open way before the actual construction. And what happens is there's a long line of traffic and there's still 2 lanes. There's still 1 lane available. So it's called a zipper merge where everybody's supposed to stay in 2 lanes until the traffic cones and then you just fold in with each other and get there. But oftentimes what'll happen is I'll be in the other lane that's open and people will try to veer me off the road because they think I'm trying to cut everybody. But I'm just trying to do what police officers say is the right thing to do. Isn't it the right thing to do is zipper merge and you stay in the 2 lanes until you get there?
Yeah, so you saw it a lot when the bridge was closed.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
War Memorial.
Yeah, and then you'd see it like when people are coming up, like they knew the order of like people that were coming from the off ramp or the on ramp. Like that's a zipper because you're letting the car in front of you go, then you go. And just keep going. So yeah, just understanding like whose turn it is, taking turns to get in would make traffic go a lot faster than, like you said, when you have traffic backed up from the bridge to Emos.
Exactly.
We're not helping.
It would go all the way to the intersection.
Yeah, we're not helping
guys. It would drive me nuts because I've had this happen on the interstate as well, 74. Sometimes there would be a wreck, and so it'd be 1 single lane traffic. but the line would be going back for like a half mile. And semi trucks, what they would do is get in the open lane and just block up traffic, thinking that, no, you got to wait your turn. But that's actually slowing down the rate of traffic, which is not a good thing.
Yep. And it's been a problem for I don't know how long. And you're not going to change it.
I'm not going to change it. But I feel like an a-hole.
You're not violating any laws by going in that other lane, but I guarantee everyone's going to hate you.
Dude, and they see my car's wrapped. So they're like, oh, this guy, he's got to be somewhere. No, I'm just trying to follow. I think there was an article written by like a state police officer. It was like, no, you need to zipper merge and get in both lanes because it's safer.
Yep. Yeah. But on that, I mean, you said the biggest thing we're seeing too with officer involved deaths is just the accidents on the interstate.
Really?
So yeah, and that's another thing that people don't understand. Scott's law. I mean,
what is that?
Scott's law is when you have any emergency vehicle that's off the side of the road, and you have to get over to the next lane.
Right.
And even if there's traffic coming past you, like you have to wait and get into traffic in the next lane to not pass that cop in the lane that he's in or next to.
Makes sense. Because
all these officers are kind of getting out into the roadway to where distracted drivers or whoever's not paying attention and just smoke them. And so I always teach the passenger side approach to try to stay on the other side of the car, but sometimes it's just not feasible. You might have a barrier or something that's restricting you from going to the passenger side. So one of the most dangerous things I've done on 74 is, we had one of those ice storms and somebody had a flat tire. Instead of going over to the shoulder, they went into the center and pulled over, and trying to change a tire with all this traffic going 60, 70 miles an hour is crazy.
Dude, I've been on 74 before to stop my car to help my kids, or something's happening where I had to stop. And when you get out of your vehicle and people are going 70 miles an hour, it's scary, dude. It's scary. People are flying down. And it's like, if they're even somewhat close to you, you can feel it.
Yeah. And I mean, it happened, Carson Kleiber over in East Peoria. I don't know if he got hit a couple years ago on the East Peoria side of 74. And I was working that night. And,
Is this somebody we went to high school with?
Yeah. Okay. He was a couple years younger, and he actually did an internship with us, and he ended up going over to East Peoria. But I mean, he had a couple years on, I think, and was safely doing traffic, sitting in his patrol car, behind a disabled motorist. And a drunk girl came and smoked the rear end of his squad car. And I mean, he was in bad shape.
Has he recovered?
He's recovered now. He's back to work. They honestly didn't think he was going to walk again.
Jeez.
They thought he was going to be paralyzed. So I'll never forget hearing that radio traffic like, hey, we just had an officer hit in East Peoria. We need people to shut down the bridge. And so I went and actually shut down 74 eastbound to go over the bridge, and not knowing the condition, who the officer was, the condition of the officer, anything like that. And when I heard it was him, it's like, man, like that hit close to home. Because, when he was an intern, he actually rode with me. And so we're talking about the dangers of the job and all that stuff. So like to see that happen firsthand, and I think they actually have his car displayed up at Eastside.
Is it just smashed?
Oh yeah. Like the rear end's almost to the driver's seat.
Man, thank God his car was strong enough to take that impact.
But that's why we're really preaching, like, these kids need to know about Scott's law.
Yeah.
And when you see emergency vehicles on the side of the road, get over.
Like,
even if you got to slow down and stop in traffic and wait your turn to get over, somebody will let you in, I guarantee it, because most people know about Scott's law. But I think the ticket for violating Scott's law is like $250. So yeah, they don't take it lightly anymore, especially with all the troopers that are getting killed across the nation. I mean, that's
the number one cause of death for police officers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's happening a lot more than cops getting shot at is cops getting hit by other cars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, dude. Yeah, I so appreciate what you do for a living, Jake, and I respect cops. And I every time I see one at a Chipotle or something, I teach my kids this. Well, like we were at a Chipotle not too long ago, and a cop was just sitting eating and just minding his business. And I had my daughters go up to him and thank him for his service. Teaching that from a young age. Like, hey, these guys are to be respected, and they're to be we're just respected in their job, because it's not easy to take on that approach to life.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing I hope for too, is that we just really show these kids like and one of my most dreaded calls is, a parent that calls in on like an 8 or 9 year old just wanting to scare them. They're misbehaving. So we call the police so we can have a conversation with them and be the bad guys. And I won't do it.
Yeah.
I'll be like, hey, look, like that's not my job.
That's your job.
That's your job. And your job is to show these kids that the police are good. We're here to help. And you see that all the time. It's like, oh, don't do that. He'll arrest you. Like, I
Yeah.
cannot stand that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But, that just has to change, like you said, from a parent standpoint.
Yeah.
Show these kids, like, we're not the bad guys. And don't make us the bad guy and call us and have us scold your kid because he won't put his PlayStation up, you know. And you think I'm joking, but that happens all the time.
Man.
And so, yeah, I'll talk to the parent and be like, hey, you know, I don't want to give your kid this bad image of the police because they won't listen to you.
Sure.
Like, it's not a crime to not listen to your mom, but you have to be a parent and figure it out. And a lot of parents think too, like, we just have this magical place we can take kids.
Right.
You know, we can't just take your kid and throw them in a group home. Like, there has to be a reason they even go to JDC. So that was another thing we didn't really get into is, you know, when we went to Monmouth, you know, I thought when you spent this amount of money on a degree, they just hand you a job, and that doesn't work that way.
It's true, dude.
So I went and worked at Texas Roadhouse for 6 months with Rob Peffer and lived with Brett Warshall.
Shout out Rob Peffer.
Yeah. So I lived with those guys, and
Is he still in Arizona?
Yeah, he's still in Arizona. But so I lived with those guys and just worked at Texas Roadhouse for 6 months with a college degree in my back pocket. And I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And so then Austin Wysop, who went to Monmouth, came in and sat at one of my tables at Texas Roadhouse. And he's like, hey, man, he's like, is this what you're doing? Like, is this your only job? I'm like,
he's like, you working here for the cinnamon butter? Or what is it?
And Austin, we weren't like super close in college or anything. I mean, we had some of the same friends in different groups, but he had told me, he's like, hey, I'm working out at the Juvenile Detention Center. He's like, they're paying like $19 an hour. You get full benefits, paid time off. And I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, you pretty much just babysit kids that are locked up. I'm like, okay, sign me up. For $19 an hour, let's go. And so, I went out to JDC and got hired like less than a month later. And so they call them youth specialist is what I started out as. Okay. But basically you're a correctional officer for a fully locked down juvenile detention center, but you wear street clothes. You don't wear like a uniform or anything.
But you are a cop.
No.
Okay.
No, you're not a cop. Okay. You're not armed with anything.
You're just a strong
You have
guy.
A radio. You have a handheld radio that goes to a thing they call control, which is like dispatch for cops. But that was a mind-blowing experience to work with kids that are 12, 13, you know, cussing at you, threatening you, and, you know, throwing stuff at you. And it's like, you know, I'm not saying East Peoria never had any type of crime happen, but we didn't see that in school. No. I mean, we didn't see, you know, the worst thing you had was a kid bringing weed to school or something like that, or a random fight after school. But no, seeing kind of the juvenile crime right off the bat and like what these kids were locked up for, because we could read the police reports and stuff. You know, the kids that were in there for murder or a shooting or, you know, sexual assault on, you know, babies, stuff like that. I mean, it was just such an eye-opening experience. I'm glad it started there because it's a more controlled environment and you kind of learn how to deal with difficult, because if you can talk to a difficult juvenile, I mean, you can pretty much talk to anybody. So, I learned, because a lot of these, you can't treat them like a fully secured, locked up facility. They're kids, and we talked about that playful environment they need to be in. So I would take 10 kids to the gym. You know, they have a full gym that has a basketball hoop and stuff they can do. But I said, we're going to the gym, we're going to play basketball.
You're going to post them up.
And as soon as you fight or you know, misbehave, like you're going back to the pod. Mm-hmm. And I'd take 10, I wouldn't have one issue.
Right.
And all these other, you know, workers, they're like, how did you do that? And it's, you just have to keep these kids busy and treat them like kids. You can't treat them like an inmate. And again, I'm not saying we need to be patty cake and treat it like a daycare. But again, if you want good behavior, like just keep them busy. Yeah. So again, that was an eye-opening. But again, it was hard to keep people there because you also feel locked up. Sure. So when you go into this facility, it's a fully locked down facility. You know, you have to put your cell phone in the break room and you get one 30-minute break and two 15-minute breaks your whole entire 8-hour shift. That's the only time you can be on your phone too. So you kind of felt like you were locked up with these kids when you went to work. I think I spent 2.5 years there, and a big stepping stone from there is probation. So I went to the county courthouse and did intensive probation, which there you were armed. So that got me out doing home visits and meeting a lot of these cops that were, you know, working the street. And I had a radio just like the police department had, and I could hear all the radio traffic. And I'm like, man, that sounds really interesting. Like I almost became like a night stalker. Like
you were your grandma. You were listening to it all the
or
time.
no, it's is it one with Jake Gyllenhaal, Night Watcher or whatever, where he shows up to scenes.
Yes.
And so I was like, I'd always creep towards where these guys like, man, I just want to see kind of what they're doing. And so then I got to know all these cops, and I'm like, and that's when I decided I'm going to put in and start trying to become a cop.
What movie most closely symbolizes being a cop?
End to Watch.
Which one?
End to Watch.
End to Watch. Okay. I don't think I've seen that one.
That's with Jake Gyllenhaal as well.
Okay. I love Jake Gyllenhaal.
But that is the only one that I think shows realistic calls that we do deal with. And then obviously I won't give away the ending, but I mean, it kind of makes everything real.
Yeah.
But yeah, End to Watch. And then if you've ever heard of Southland?
Yes.
It's an old show that used to be on Showtime. That is a hilarious and very, very realistic watch. There's a new show that just came out that my wife and I watched. It's called On Call.
Okay.
It's on Prime, I think all these streaming services, man. It's
just so many.
It's so hard to keep up.
Jake Gyllenhaal is my favorite actor. There's a movie called Prisoners. Do you remember this one?
It's really good.
Where he finds the kid.
Yeah.
Dude, we just watched that a couple months ago. That movie's so good. But I think it shows a really good the perception of the private investigator who's dealing with all this pressure to find these kids that are gone.
Yeah.
And his dad doesn't think he's doing a good job, and he's just working all the hours of the day, and his police chief is kind of like, forget about this, or he's trying to take him other directions. But he just got consumed by this one story of this kid being abducted, and it's a good ending to the movie, but it's just such a roller coaster.
And then he's in the new show on Apple TV, Presumed Innocence. Have you heard of that?
Dude, have you watched that?
Yeah.
So good.
Really good.
So good. He must have some kind of tie to police work.
Yeah, I think he's intrigued by the acting of it, and he's kind of got an understanding of it. I mean, you'll see an End to Watch, like you would think this dude's a cop, like just by the.
I'm writing it down, Jake.
I'm telling you, watch that movie tonight, and
I watch it.
Tell me how you like it.
I will. I love watching movies.
But yeah, I can't think of anything else that's really spot on like that one. But yeah, I mean, you see it all the time to where one hilarious one is Chicago PD.
Okay.
I mean, those dudes will shoot 3 people and be back to work the next shift. And it's
This is a real show?
Yeah. Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, Chicago Med.
Oh, like that
show.
I'm sorry, not like a real show, but like it's a fictional show.
Oh, it's a fictional. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I know what show you're talking about.
To show that stuff is like, that's unbelievable.
There's a what's the show that was on Comedy Central for a long time? It was a gag show.
Reno 911.
yeah, dude.
New Boot Goof.
New Boot Goof and Andrew Farrar. Shout out. I'm going to have him on the podcast this next week. We're going to dress up in outfits and have a good time.
That's awesome.
But yeah, Reno 911, dude, so many scenes are just like comical.
Yeah.
Comical.
Oh, there's some good shows out there that actually do show realistic stuff. And
what's the show that has the body cams and it's like the real look of the police officers? It's kind of like the next version of Cops. What am I thinking about?
I think it's called Body Cam.
Is it Body Cam?
Yeah, the realistic one.
There's like a person in a studio and he's like, let's go down to this city. We're checking with this.
So it's called Body Cam. It used to be called, I forget what it used to be called.
Let's look it up. I wish I had a producer in here. Body Cam show. Yeah, Body Cam on the scene. Old name.
Be Police.
Yeah, it was previously Cops and then it became Body Cam, but that show's super interesting as well.
Yeah, and it's, like I said, body cams have made it so easy for people to really see
the real life.
Because, like I said, if you and I have an interaction, I pull you over, it's a stop that you don't like the way I handled.
Well, now that you're on the podcast, dude, I'm like, do you know Jake Willis? As soon as you
don't do that.
Don't give me a
I tell my wife she can't even do that. But yeah, but if you don't like the way that I handled it, or you want to see, what I said or what I did, you can go down and FOIA the body cam, and you can have it. You can save it if you want and show everybody. I mean, that's, like I said, there's no secrets when it comes to body cams. I mean, you can FOIA it for any reason. Mm-hmm. So that's, like I said, really changed the game for a lot of these shows to have that because back in the day with Cops,
the cameras,
you had these huge cameras and these dudes that would have to get out on
the
foot
mics
and chase these cops that are chasing somebody else. So you'd be very lucky to get a good call. But now we're all wearing them, so it's like they're your directors. I mean, they have it on them, so you don't have to really work for that footage anymore because it's point of view now. Like you can see exactly what I was going through, and that's where you have to be very conscious about where it's at on your person. So I wear mine very
pointing
high
down or something.
Yeah, I mean, I wear mine high, but it has a huge range of view. So even though I'm taller than, most of the people that I'm dealing with, it's not going to miss their face or anything. But there's some people that have worn them like on their belt clips or something that just doesn't catch something, or it falls off. So you have to really think of how is it secured to your person, and to make sure if something does happen, it's not going to fall off. So with the SWAT team, we just got cameras that they're going to be on our helmets now. So that way with our body armor and everything, we're never covering up the camera on accident. So it'll be
the shield, like you said.
Yeah. So if you have a shield in front of you, it's going to cover the camera. But again, in a dangerous, situation, we can't think of, we got to get this on film. We got to make sure that it's a good angle. So yeah, we're getting smarter and smarter about where we're able to mount these cameras on our person and how secure they are. The mounts they're making now are basically indestructible to where they're not going to break off. They're not going to fall off. Even if someone tugs on them, it's going to be hard to get that camera off.
This is one of those things, Jake, like the picture frames in pickleball. You're into this because you do it for a living. So you just know all these different things that normal people would never think about. No. Right? Until you hear stories about it. So it's enlightening.
Because then there's a whole nother aspect of body cameras to where we have to go in and actually flag the footage, because we don't have the software, the storage,
like the important moments.
Yeah, you can't save every single footage from every day from every cop and expect it to be there 10 years down the road. So we have to actually save the ones that involve an arrest or a certain dynamic to where it has to be flagged. So if you don't do that, it's on the officer themselves, to where if you get called to court, which most cases that are high profile are not going to go to court for a year or two.
I see.
So if you go to court 2 years down the road, the state's attorney's not looking for your body camera right off the bat all the time.
Sure.
So you might be a cop that just showed up that is still going to get subpoenaed, that is important to the case, but you're not the primary cop. So we've had it to where cops get subpoenaed, the state's attorney goes to look for the body cam, it's just not there.
So are you choosing what stuff to save and not save?
Yeah, we have a certain criteria that requires it to be saved for X amount of time. So if you don't save it, typically it's going to be gone within 90 days.
Okay.
So, and that's just based off of the amount of storage that's physically possible to save, because it costs X amount of dollars to, just like with your iPhones, you can get 5 gigs of storage, or you can get 100 gigs for this amount of money. So we have the capability to do so much, but it's cost more and more money to get that network.
Even for this podcast, we have a memory card that's 1,000. I think it's what's 1,024 gigabytes, a terabyte of data. But with one podcast, Jake, we'll go through 100 gigabytes of data, because it's 3 cameras, it's the audio feed, it's a lot of different information. So it fills up quick. So, and memory's not cheap. It costs a lot to store it. And
so there's a lot of calls, especially like a homicide or something. You're going to have 30 cops there that are all recording on their cameras for however long it takes.
A lot of data.
And so a lot of technology that just you have to keep up with, and it costs money. So I think our radios, that costs the city. I don't think it costs the city. We can get grants for this stuff too.
Okay.
So everyone thinks everything we have is coming out of the city's budget.
Sure.
Not necessarily true either. We get grants for a lot of
stuff. You guys do fundraisers too?
We do but again, with the state grants and the federal grants and stuff like that, a lot of our equipment comes from grants.
I see.
That people don't understand is not coming from the city's budget.
Who's fighting for those grants for you?
We have a grant writer.
Okay.
Yep. And she will see if we qualify for certain grants and what we can get. So yeah, like I said, a lot of things like AEDs, medical supplies, that type of stuff is usually there's a grant for that can come out of that fund instead of taking from the city's fund.
Makes sense. Well, this has been tremendous, dude. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Very enlightening conversation. I'm very thankful for. So thanks so much for coming on. Thank you for your service to the city.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
I'll come back anytime you want to find out what's going on.
Dude, I'll just 6 months from now, I'm going to say, Jake, tell me the most crazy stuff. You need to come on a ride along
and ride with me, and we'll do a podcast in the car.
I would do it. Yeah. Would you let me film it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll bring my videographer. We'll have a great time.
Well, he'll have to sit in a cage, but
even more fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. Dude,
I'm so in. Yeah. Jake Willis, thanks so much for coming on the Tiger.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.